Hello and welcome to another episode. This one we are going to be looking at the first season of the Shannara Chronicles, an MTV production, and I had high hopes for this one. It's when I first heard that they were going to adapt the Elfstones of Shannara, a novel by Terry Brooks, fantastic author. I was well up for this. I thought this would be a fantastic book to adapt. If they were doing a TV series, fine. A movie would have been great. First things first. I first read the Shannara Chronicles when I was still in school, so a good few years back. The Sword of Shannara, the Elfstones of Shannara, and the Wish Song of Shannara, and they were good. They really were good. There was obvious inflections there from the Lord of the Rings. You couldn't escape it back then. Nearly all fantasy novels lent something to Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, and the Elfstones of Shannara are no different. You're sending off two young people on a mission that, if they fail, the entire world will collapse. Evil will take over. So it's basically the same as sending off Frodo and Sam into Mordor with the ring. And if they fail, Sauron wins and Middle-earth is plunged into darkness. So, it's exactly the same. You've even got Gandalf in the Shannara Chronicles, in the character of Alanon the Druid. It pretty much is almost a carbon copy. Powerful magic user, doesn't tell everyone the entire truth if it suits his needs, mentors the youngsters, helps them out where he can but isn't there all the time. So yeah. But anyway, the Shannara Chronicles, as I say, huge hope for this series when it came out. What I wasn't expecting was, unfortunately, I should have perhaps guessed it when I realised it was an MTV production. This is geared towards the younger audience, the teens, older teens, early 20s maybe, the clubbing generation, the millennials, whatever you want to call them. This is geared to them. This isn't for those of us who like Game of Thrones. This isn't geared towards those of us who like Lord of the Rings. It is just not up there at all. And they don't even try and hide it. You've got a cast where the majority of the cast, the three main cast members, are youngsters. Two young girls and a young guy. And when they're not spending time taking their clothes off, or having a sob with each other, or riding through forests, or that sort of thing. Then they have a couple of fight scenes that aren't that spectacular. It isn't. It's just not good. It's okay. I say it's not good. Obviously, it's done well enough that it's getting a second season, but I can't understand why it is. When you consider that so many series are out there now that are fantastic series that do well and have a following, and they get cancelled after their first season, or even sometimes halfway through their first season. And yet this completes its first season and then gets renewed for a second one. I mean, it boggles the mind. I just don't grasp how these executives of these studios make these decisions. All I can think of is that the people at MTV were thinking, okay, Game of Thrones is a huge success at the moment. Fantasy films, you've got Warcraft coming out. Perhaps we should try and get back on board with this. We have to have some program on our network to cater to the youngsters who are packed into this now. And they figured, well, we'll get the rights for Terry Brooks' Shannara books and we'll adapt them. Well, that was a good decision because, as I say, the Shannara books are fantastic. But they aren't geared to a younger audience. They can be read by a younger audience. Like I say, I read them when I was in school. But then I read The Lord of the Rings when I was 11, so go figure. but the books themselves aren't really geared to a younger audience per se. But this series, as I say, most definitely is, and that's where MTV is aiming. And obviously they've decided they've achieved their goal with their first season, even though it's got a mediocre to average review with the critics. But I think the main problem comes from the fact that although they are adapted the novel The Elfstones of Shannara into this first season, Shannara Chronicles, they really only successfully, and I use that word widely, adapted the first half of the novel. If you've ever read The Elfstones of Shannara, you'll know what I mean if you've seen the series. But the first half of the book, they got pretty much right. But then from about episode 5 of the Shannara Chronicles onwards, it pretty much all changed. For example, John Rhys Davies, who plays the king, he doesn't die to the end of the novels. He doesn't get assassinated, although they attempt to assassinate him. The shapeshifter tries to assassinate him, but the king kills the shapeshifter, although he's injured in the attempt. But he doesn't die until the end. So killing off John Rhys Davies, a fantastic actor, one of only a couple in this series, was probably a bad mistake. So they didn't need to do that. And secondly, they've changed a couple of things, like the creature that hunts Will and the princess through the forests. Big hulking thing in armor and yeah, you remember him? Yeah. Okay, in the books, he doesn't die by falling off of a cliff and being washed downstream. He lasts a lot longer in the books, and he is killed by Will with the Elfstones. So, that's fine. And that's probably what should have happened, because they got rid of this guy too quickly and too easily, really. But changing these little things change the entire feel of the book and of the show, and I think that's why it doesn't appeal to me. In the book, I know I keep harking back to the book, but it is an adaptation of this book, so it should be reasonably faithful. In the books, the elves go out to meet the demons about halfway through the book. They've sent Will and Amberley off with the seed of the Elcris to sort that, to find safe home, to do what they need to do there, and come back and rebirth the Elcris. So in the book, they've done that. They've sent them off, and while they're away, the demon horde is coming closer. So the elves get together, send off their armies, and try and hold the horde of demons back. And like I said, this is about halfway through the book, perhaps a little bit before. And they basically just fight a holding action. From then on, they'll have a battle, they'll fall back, they'll have another battle, they'll fall back, and eventually they fall back to Avalon. Sorry, where the capital of the Elven City, Avalon, and they hold the walls as much as they can, but then the horde slowly starts fighting through those walls, one after another. There's 7 gates in Avalon, supposedly, and then after that, all that's left is the garden where the Elcris is. Oddly enough, Minas Tirith in the Lord of the Rings had 7 gates. Anyway, regardless. But anyway, in the books, the horde fight through the city, fight over the walls, and get to the garden where the Elcris is. And there, Alanon the Druid and the Dagdamol have this big fight, and Alanon wins. Although he uses so much magic to do so, he's aging and has to, in the end of the book, he has to go back to the Druid's Keep, Paranol, which doesn't appear in this series, to regenerate. But it gives time for Will and Amberley to arrive, and Amberley turns into the new Elcris and kills the demons. So that's fine. And they got that bit right. At the very end, they got right. But rather than in the series, rather than having the elves go out and heroically sacrificing themselves to try and hold back the demon horde to give Will and Amberley more time, the only time the elves and the demons fight was in the very last episode. Other than that, the entire series is really just Will and Amberley stumbling around in the wilderness trying to find their way, falling over all these bad encounters, and it's terrible acting, to be fair. The people who play Will and Amberley aren't really the best actors. This might be, I don't know them personally, I can't remember seeing them in anything else. But Austin Butler and Poppy Drayton. I think I've heard of Poppy Drayton. I think I've seen her. Might have seen her in some other stuff. But either it's the writing or the acting, but it's not very good, unfortunately. But like I say, you've got a couple of people who hold it down as much as they can. John Rhys Davies obviously is the king, Eventide, and Manu Bennett as Alanon. Who you may remember from Arrow. If you watch Arrow, he played Slade in Arrow, Deathstroke. So, there's a couple of good actors in there, but the rest, not so good, not so great. And talking about the final battle, when I was watching it last night, I appreciate this is a television show, not a movie. This hasn't got the budget that Peter Jackson had for The Lord of the Rings. I get that. I do understand that. So they can't have huge battle sequences all the way through the series. They can't have a huge siege at the end of the series where they're fighting over city walls and that sort of thing. I get that. But the final battle where the Elven army leave the city, you've got this huge walled city, and they leave the city, and they stand. If you've seen the episode, you're going to know exactly what I mean. There's this shot they show you where you've got the Elven army standing on one side of a ditch, which is probably 5-6 foot deep, and they've locked shields and they've got their spears down, and it's a perfect. It's not perfect. It's not behind a high wall, but for what it is, it's a defensible position. You've got a ditch in front of you. You've got a shield wall. You've got spears down. It's going to cost the demons a lot to take it. Okay, and then you've got the demons turn up and they stand on the other side of the ditch. So you've got this lovely image. You've got the elves on one side, you've got the demons on the other, the elves with their spears down, and then the Elven King shouts, "Charge!" and everyone jumps into the ditch. There goes your defense. You're basically thrown away a perfectly good shield wall with spears and told your soldiers to jump into a ditch, where the demons jumped into the ditch and it becomes one-on-one fighting. And from that point on, it's a total melee. It's chaos. Now, battles are chaos. Obviously, I totally understand that. But there's no reason for this. It's a stupid decision. A first-year cadet at West Point would be able to command this army better than the king does. I could command the army better than the king does. And it's stupidity like that comes out. It destroys your faith in the characters when you see them make decisions like this. It's like, my God, what are you thinking? You're sacrificing your men for no reason. So anyway, the demon horde obviously get the better hand. They fight their way through, but luckily Will and Amberley turn up just in time, just the nick of the time. Get into the garden where the Elchris is, and they're totally safe. The doors are shut. The guards are guarding the door. And they've got time. They've got about 5 minutes now before the demons can get into them. So all Amberley has to do is get to the tree, which is like 10 yards away. That's all she's got to do. But no, because this is, like I say, a teen angst sort of Beverly Hills 90210 sort of crap going on here, her and Will have to have this long, drawn-out farewell. Oh, I love you. Oh, my God, I'm going to lose you. It's like, oh, my God. It's like, oh. It's a facepalm moment, because while they're doing all this, the demons fight their way in, and the Dagdamor is still alive at this point. He throws Alan onto the ground. Alan's almost dead. And now it becomes between him and Will. and Will has to fight the Dagdamor with the Elfstones. That doesn't happen in the books. Okay, Alanon, the powerful druid, defeats the Dagdamor in the books. That's his role. That's what he's there for. Will isn't that powerful. But in the series, Will uses the Elfstones to fight off the Dagdamor, giving Amberly just enough time to get to the tree. But even then, she keeps stopping and looking over her shoulder, and she's seeing this guy who she supposedly loves about to be killed by this demon because he can't hold out any longer. She keeps stopping and looking back at him rather than running to the tree and doing what she has to do. And it's like, my God, what's going on here? The most annoying thing is the director, Jon Favreau, is a fantastic director. I love Jon Favreau's stuff. He has done fantastic work. But for some reason, it boggles the mind that, this can be put out there as good TV and get a second season. God knows what they're going to do for the next one. Perhaps they're going to adapt one of the other books. I'm sure they've got the rights to the entire trilogy, or even more than that. I think Terry Brooks wrote more than the 3 series of books. So I don't know. It's just very, very, very frustrating for me to actually see this. But anyway, that's pretty much it. I'm not going to rant on anymore. It was a poor series. It shouldn't have got a second series. It should have just been left to die and go away. But obviously MTV are throwing more money into it. But as I say, those are my reasons for not liking it. Obviously, there are loads of people out there who did like it. Some people, it's a guilty pleasure. They just watch it because, I don't know, perhaps light-hearted entertainment, maybe. I mean, if you're into, older teens, early 20s with fit bodies taking off their clothes, then hey, go for it. I mean, the young lad in it takes off his top, at least once in every episode. And to be fair, the 2 young girls are very attractive, and they get down to leather corsets and tight leather pants or whatever, and dressed all the time in those. So I can't complain really, I suppose. But that's pretty much all he's got going for it. So I'll leave it there. Thank you for watching. And I appreciate you giving me the time to rant at you for this. I hope it was at least entertaining in some regards. You guys take care. See you in the next one.